So I can hit Command N for a new composition, or I can just click on the big new composition button there. I'm going to name this composition GRC 53 underscore 250910 underscore your last name underscore first initial underscore LECT. Our duration here, I'm going to change that from 5 seconds to 10 seconds. And just for future reference, the way that this time code works here is that this first number, the single digit, is the hours. These two zeros here are the minutes. These two here are the seconds, and then these are the frames. So if you wanted to do a 30 frame animation, you could do that, and you would just type 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 30 there. But we're going to do 10 seconds. And again, once again, the composition is named GRC 53 underscore 250910 underscore your last name underscore your first initial underscore LECT. And the reason we do this instead of calling it main or anything else is that when this composition renders, it will render with that name .mp4, making sure that your file has the correct name. Also, it sets it apart pretty well from all the other comps that we might have. Okay, click OK and rock and roll. Sweet. All right, and just for funsies, let's go ahead and save this file. So we're going to choose Save, and then we're going to name it. Same thing, GRC 53 underscore 2509. Today's the 10th, underscore your last name, underscore first initial, underscore LECT, because it's the lecture. And it's going to go into a folder that we're going to create. Well, I'm going to click New Folder, GRC 53 underscore 250910. That's it. That's all we need for the folder name. Create. All right, and I'm going to drop it into that folder. Oh, I just created that folder inside of another folder. That's awesome. So that happens sometimes. What, Mr. Cooksey, happened? Well, I'll tell you. So I had this folder. Wait, where did it go? One of these folders selected. There we go. I had my 08 folder from Monday selected, and then I created the new folder, and it created it inside of the 08 folder. So whenever you create a new folder, you always want to make sure you have the root selected. Otherwise, it's going to put it into a subfolder. But it's an easy fix. I just click and drag this back into the sub, or into the root, and there it is somewhere. Boom. Yay. All right, here we go. Rock and roll. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is kind of an example of what happens when we have we adjust the clip length on a comp and make it shorter than the main composition. So right now we have a main composition with nothing in it. I would like to create a new composition. So over in my projects panel, I'm going to hit this little button right there. When I hover over it, it says create a new composition. Once again, it's over here in the projects project panel. If you don't see the project panel, if yours is on effects control for some reason, just click on project. It's a tab up here. And I'm going to click new comp. Boop. And I'm going to call this comp Shorty. When I was a kid, I had an uncle, a great uncle named Uncle Shorty. And this is in honor of him. He wasn't really particularly of short stature though, but that's just what they called him. And here for the duration, I'm going to change the duration for Shorty to 0.3. It's going to be 3 seconds long. And then I'm going to click OK. Groovy. And let's just type some text here. Okay, so we have created two comps. One's called Shorty, one is the name of our lecture. This we're referring to as the primary main composition, though it is not named main, but it will be our main composition. And then we have Shorty here. In these compositions, the list of compositions, the list of the files, there's nothing here that says pre-comp, and I don't think it ever does. I think it's always composition. Whether we create a pre-comp or not, it's always going to be a composition. Back in the olden days of After Effects, a pre-composition was something that you could pre-render, so it would allow you to show your animation a lot faster, and because computers were made of fire and wood and rocks, and they just weren't very fast at rendering. But nowadays we have much more RAM and processing power, and so the idea of having a pre-rendered composition is kind of old. And so when we say pre-comp, it's just like a holdover from those days. Really what it means is it's a it's a sub-composition. Meaning it's a composition that's going to live inside of another composition, like a nested folder, like in the folders that we create for the class. Those folders all exist inside of the folder for GRC53, at least on my files, and then the folder for GRC53 is inside of my FCC folder. And the only thing that makes them subfolders is that they are inside of another folder, but they're really a folder, and it's just existing inside of another folder. And so a pre-comp is just a composition that exists inside of another composition, but independently, it's its own thing. And you can render out a pre-comp if you want to just show that thing as a file. You can do that. All right, so what I'm going to do is on the tabs here, right now I'm in Shorty, and you can see because that is underlined there. And so I'm going to click on my main composition down here in my comp timeline. And I know I'm in the right composition because there's no layers here. I haven't added anything to this. And so I'm going to drag Shorty from my project files down into this layer. Now, one thing you'll notice immediately is that as we set Shorty's length to 3 seconds, there it is. It's ending right at 3 seconds. This comp is 10 seconds, but we only have 3 seconds of Shorty, and when it gets to the end, Shorty disappears. This is called the clip length, this indicator here. And one thing that's interesting is that you can actually click and grab this and move it further down the timeline. And when we do that, that's called sequencing. And we have multiple comps. our pre-comps in our timeline are multiple objects. We can adjust the start and end of those, the visibility of those, and that is for this composition, that's when the animation may start. So let's go ahead and go back to Shorty and let's give it some animation here. So we're going to do this the new cool way. I'm going to select the Shorty layer inside of the Shorty comp. Make sure you're inside of the Shorty comp, not in the primary comp. With that layer selected, I'm going to hit P for position. And then we learned this on Monday. Option click on the stopwatch to create an expression. So here we go. I'll do that one more time. I selected the Shorty layer. I hit P for position. It opens up the position property. It's just a shortcut. You can, if you want to, twirl everything down and show all of the transforms, including position. But if you have the layer selected and just hit the P, that's the shortcut to just show position. While yes, question?
I'm just making sure you're recording.
I am, yes. Did I lose you?
Nope.
Okay. Yes, it is still recording. Okay. Now to open up the expression editor for the position property, I'm going to hold down the Option key, click on the stopwatch. Also, if you have an expression and you hit Option, click on the stopwatch, it erases the expression that you wrote. So be very careful with that. Okay, and then in the expression editor, I'm going to get rid of transform position. I'm going to type wiggle, comma, 10, sorry, wiggle 10, comma, 100. And so it will wiggle with a frequency of 10, which is a pretty conservative wiggle, but it's going to go 100 pixels in whatever direction it's going to wiggle. And then don't hit enter. I know you want to hit enter, but don't hit enter. You have to click somewhere else to lock it in. And then play your playhead, and we can see Shorty's moving around. And because of how compositions work, when it gets to the end of the composition length, it flips and runs back to the beginning and starts over again. And it's pretty seamless. Okay.
So 10 and 100 is what again?
So the first one is the frequency and then amplitude. So if we increase this to 100, the wiggle is going to be way faster. And if we drop it down to, something like 2, the wiggle is going to be a lot slower. Oh. And then the amplitude is how far it moves. So, if you wanted to do a 200 frequency with an amplitude of 10, this is me when I've had too much coffee, right? The wiggle is very fast, but it's only moving a little bit because the amplitude is only 10. But if we set this, let's say do 1,000, Shorty's going all over the place. Okay. Save your work, Command S. And let's click back over to our main comp here, our GRC 53250910 composition. And you can see that when the playhead reaches that clip, Shorty starts moving. And then when the clip is over, Shorty's done. So you might be asking yourself, why can't I just grab the end of this and stretch it out? Because you can't. You can make it shorter But at this point, you cannot make it longer. Not without doing what's called a time remap. Time remap will take that clip and allow it to loop, and then once the time remap is applied, you can extend this clip length out. All right, let's do this. Let's bring our clip back to the very first frame. So we can right click on two different things here. Only one gets us to where we need to be though. If you right click on the clip, oh no, the clip does it too. Okay, so either the layer or the clip. If you right click either the layer or the clip itself and choose time, and then enable time remap. And before you do that, make sure you are inside of our primary comp and that you are working on the layer, the comp layer of Shorty. We shouldn't be inside of the Shorty composition because this will not work. We've got to be outside of that comp and in the main comp that's longer than our pre-comp. So right click, choose time, and then enable time remap. And so what that does is it creates two keyframes that you can see here and here. Those define the time remap keyframe. And we can assign different things to that. We can have it go slower or faster. We can have it reverse. I'm not going to do that though. But one thing that is interesting is now you notice that little tiny triangle is no longer at the beginning and end of that clip. Now it looks like a regular clip. And if I hover over this and drag out, I go all the way to the end of my window. And what happens? Still doesn't work, but my clip is now longer. Ooh, nice, right? So this will accommodate if we do something like a time remap and then we expand the time, or we slow down time, it can expand into this extended clip that we just dragged out. So what we need to do is we need to tell this through an expression that it needs to loop. Option click on the stopwatch for time remap. And we're going to enter the loop out function. And the loop out function has to be typed exactly like that with a capital O, lowercase, all the other letters, and then open and close parentheses. As you type this, it will give you options, and you could, if you want to, you can just click the loop out there. And again, don't hit enter, you just click somewhere else to make it work. And now it will continue through the length of that clip. Okay, so number one, make sure that you have extended the length of the Shorty clip. If you are unable to stretch it, time remapping is not enabled. And then make sure that you have added the loop out expression. And to add that, you option click on the time remap stopwatch right there, and then type loop out. We're going to drag the Shorty comp onto our main composition 3 times. So we're going to have 3 of these guys on here. Now the one that's looped, the one that has been time remapped, that's the one, for me it's on top. And I know this because it's the longest there. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to rename this layer. I'm going to call it shorty loop. And it's the one that takes the full length of the composition time. Now what I want you to do is I want you to take the one that's at the bottom, layer 4, and drag it to the end. And then I want you to take this one and drag it to 5 seconds, and this one and drag it to 3 seconds. Let's play with that a little bit more. Let's take this one and let's put it at 2 seconds. And we'll move this one to kind of in between those two. That's better. And I mean, if it's not right at 2 seconds, the thing I want to demonstrate is that we can start these things in time here. Now, using the wiggle is great for showing activity and great for showing our loop, but I really want to demonstrate something happening over time. And so I'm going to go back to my shorty comp here, and I'm going to remove the wiggle. So how do I do that? Well, first of all, select the shorty composition from the timeline panel. So click on that tab. And then we enabled expressions on the position layer by holding down the Option key and clicking on the stopwatch. We can also get rid of them by doing the same thing. So hold down the Option key on your keyboard and click the stopwatch next to position. And when I click on that, my wiggle goes away. And now it's just there. And let's go ahead and do a standard animation with this. So I'm going to make sure your play it is at the beginning. I'm going to move shorty over to the left. And then just regular click on the stopwatch to create a keyframe. Hit the K key to go to the end. And then move shorty to the right, and that will give you a new keyframe at the end. And now I have this sliding animation here. So when I go back into my main timeline now, I'm no longer wiggling. I've got a little train of shorties. So what we're demonstrating through this is how we can use clips to manage the timing of when animations are visible, when they start, when they stop. And if you want to, let's hide the first and the third layer. So that all that's visible is this one and this one. So the second clip and the third clip are all that's visible. And so this is a for instance, if there was no clip here, it would look like that. And then shorty would start, and then once it gets to the end of its clip, it's done. And this one is done as well. Okay, so that is how we adjust clips. That's how we do time remapping. All right, there's two sliders up at the top here. This guy is called the zoom, I guess. It allows you to zoom in on your timeline all the way down to the individual frames. And then you can also grab it. Everybody just kind of look at the screen here. You can grab it to slide forward or backwards. It's not scrubbing the play yet. It is just moving what you can see and zooms in and zooms out. This guy here, this is the time ruler. This is what defines our work area. If I take this and slide it up here and then start playing my animation, it's going to get to the end of that work area and start over. If I grab the beginning of this and slide it over here, it's only going to play through that little section. The advantage of that is if you are trying to nail a particular area, you're trying to fine-tune the animation of a specific spot and not have to let the playhead loop all the way through the whole composition. This is a handy way of doing that. Two things to keep in mind. Number one, that this defines the render. If I add this composition to the render queue right now, it will only render out this thing that's defined here. So once you're done with this, you always want to make sure and reset these back to the full length of the clip for sure. But there may be an instance where you want to just define a specific area and you want that to actually be the clip. Like you want that to be the start and stop permanently, and you want to get rid of all of the other stuff. So you can right click on that work area slider and trim comp to work area. And so now our comp is, what is that, approximately 5 seconds or whatever. And so it is clipped off the other clips. There are some keyboard shortcuts too, but I feel like I've given you so many keyboard shortcuts. But let's say you want your work area to start here. If you hit the B key, it will snap to the playhead of the beginning. And if you want your work to end here, N is the end of that play area. So B and N define the beginning and end. So if you hit your J key and K key, they will go to the beginning and end of that work area. So back over in our lecture file here, I want to get rid of these 3 shorty layers. And in my shorty comp, I want to remove the keyframe for the movement. So just click the stopwatch. If it's blue, that means there's some kind of animation set or keyframing set. Click the stopwatch, those keyframes just disappear. Alright, so this has no keyframes, no animation, no expressions. And I want you to select on the text, click on the text. And we're going to do Option Command Home to center the anchor point. So I selected my shape here, and then Option Command Home on the keyboard, and that centers the anchor point. By default, when you start typing text, the anchor point is in the lower left hand corner. There it is right there, that little target. But Option Command Home drops it in the center. Okay. Okay. Make sure you have the selection tool selected. Make sure you're in the shorty comp. You've selected the shorty, and then Option Command Home. If it worked, you'll see that anchor point in the center of shorty.
Okay.
You got it?
Okay, I get it.
Okay. And then on the comp timeline, we're going to click on the shorty and we're going to hit R for rotation. Make sure the playhead is at the very beginning. And I'm going to click on the stopwatch to create a primary start keyframe. So playhead's at the beginning. I clicked on the stopwatch. It created a keyframe at the stopwatch location with the current rotation properties. And then I'm going to move my playhead to the end. So I hit the K key. So my playhead is at the end here, 3 seconds out. And I'm going to drag the second set of numbers here. All the way out. 360 is one full rotation. And as soon as you get past 359, it gives you 1x. That's one full rotation. But there's a problem with that. And I'll see if you can recognize it. I'm playing it. Well, now it's not showing up. Hold on, let me try moving this in closer. Oh, that's not going to work either. Bless you. Let me go bigger on this. Oh, now it's not doing it. Fart. Okay. Right here, we're at 0 rotation at the beginning. The very last keyframe, it's at 0 rotation. It is 1, but because it's one complete 360, it is at the same position as it was at the beginning. The problem with that is that for a brief second, and because we have so many frames here, I did this too long. It's not showing up for us, but it should. Because we have 2 frames that represent the same exact thing, even though the in-between frames have it rotating, there's a stutter. And if I bring this up to like 1 second here, and I bring my playhead back, so I shorten my motion here. It's very subtle. It is there. Maybe I need to do longer. There it goes. You can see it now. It's just a quick little stutter. So we want to make sure that when we are doing our loop here, oh, we got to start all over. Okay, so we should have, so everyone should have this rotation, yes? All right, cool. Save your work. Let's go back to the primary comp. I'm going to delete the shorty loop and then place it again. And then I'm going to do my time remap. Right click on the clip, choose time, enable time remapping. Option click on the stopwatch. Loop out is my expression. Extend my clip. All right. Because the time remapping goes from the beginning of the clip to the end of the clip, we have this thing that takes place. Watch it. Boom. Do you see that little flicker? That's not ideal. Sometimes it shows up, sometimes it doesn't. But the way, bless you, to fix that is we have to manually set that time remap keyframe one keyframe early. So don't try and scrub your head to play to that frame. Put it in there and then just do like a K key to jump to that keyframe. Or if your playhead is out here, do the J key to go to that keyframe. And then you're going to hit the page up key one time to move the playhead one frame back, and then hit this triangle over here to add a new keyframe. And then when we zoom in on this, now we can see there are two keyframes, and then we just select that last keyframe and then delete it. And our stutter goes away. Except, of course, once it gets to the end of the primary composition. Okay, that is very, very important for us to know. It can be a point of frustration when you are using time remap, because we're running out of frames. Even though it's the full clip length, there's one blank there at the end. And so this allows us to eliminate that stutter.